Good morning, everyone. This is Dan Spots on behalf of the Dalles Area Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to the Dalles Chamber Community Affairs. Today is May 7th, 2026. I cannot believe it's May already. But our guest this morning, Chris Grant, Fire Marshal with Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue, and we're going to be learning about wildfire prevention techniques around the home and other updates around the district. Before I turn it over to Chris, let's do some round-the-table introductions, organizational updates. I'm going to start with Linda Kentro. Linda, take it away.
Good morning. Yes, I'm Linda Kentro. I'm with Protect Oregon's Progress, an indivisible group, and I really have only this to report. It's not my organization, but the River Tribe of the Yakima Nation is having an event tomorrow in Goldendale, wherein they will share their plans to continue fighting against a high water reservoir on the top of their Pushpum Sacred Hill. That's from 10:30 to 2:30. That's all.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you. That's referring to the pumped hydro project over at, yeah, okay. Thank you. Let's turn it over to Scott McKay.
Good morning, everyone. Scott McKay, volunteer for Circles of Care and the convener for the dementia-friendly Wasco County steering committee and organization. A very informal organization, but anyway, that's all I have to report, Dan. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Scott. I'll turn it over to Corliss and then Bill.
All right. Corliss Marsh. Good morning, everyone. I'm with Habitat for Humanity, the Library Senior Center, and the College Foundation Board. And no new updates.
All righty. Thank you, Corliss. Turn it over to Bill and then Phil. On process improvement, I'm going to try to remember to give you the heads up. How about that? Bill, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Bill Lennox, and I'm with North Central Public Health. I'm on the board with that, representing Wasco County, and also volunteer with Six Rivers Dispute Resolution Center. And I have nothing really to report at this point. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Phil and then Mike.
Hi, Phil Brady, Wasco County Commissioner. Today we're having budget meetings to look at the overall county budget, probably some of the most important decisions we make of the year. And if we missed it this morning, I didn't get up early enough, but there's traces of Halley's Comet that are still in Halley's Comet's orbit. And this week the Earth passes through that band and it creates a mild meteor shower, but it's kind of early morning thing, 4 o'clock in the morning looking east. Not a big one, not exciting, but it's there.
What's the name of the shower, Phil?
Eta Aquarid. Eta is the Greek letter in the star letter of order of the stars in brightness in Aquarius. Eta Aquarid meteor shower.
Excellent. Thank
Peak
you.
was last night.
Okay. Mike and then Julie.
Good morning, everybody. I'm with Fort Dalles Museum and the Dalles Kiwanis Club, and not much to report, except there's a lot of boats this week. We're going to have 4 boats docking, so hopefully lots of people are coming up to the museum. Y'all have a good day.
I saw him tied up the other day. Good to know. Julie and then Salvador.
Julie Reynolds. I'm with Historic St. Paul's Chapel downtown and with Fort Dalles Museum. And I can see the cruise ships when they come in from my bedroom window. I can look right down I'm way up on the hill by the hospital, but I can see them. So that's kind of cool. I know when somebody's in town.
It's just nice, so nice to see that dock being utilized. I remember Nolan Young, Rob Van Cleve, others taking the lead on putting that thing together, and Nolan was a genius in the financial package. Salvador and then Roger. Salvador, go ahead. With Mid-Columbia Housing Authority. And Salvador, if not, I'm going to give you a second to turn your mic on. Let's turn it over to Roger and then Brian Tuck. We'll come back to Salvador.
Thank you. A couple of things coming up. I was going to mention the event tomorrow about the pump storage. Fascinating. My understanding from the tribe, this is the first time that the owner of the property, which is in private hands, has allowed them to do a function on the property. So this is going to be very interesting. It's going to have a salmon lunch and some tribal dancing as well. So it'll be very interesting for people. And then next Tuesday, the first and only in-person meeting of the Columbia River Gorge Commission will take place starting at 9 a.m. And that is at the Country Club of the golf course in Carson, Washington. I have the name in front of me right now, but it would be highly interesting if you wanted to attend either online or in person, because a whole lot of stuff is on the menu this time. We got a ton of stuff to go through, and it'll probably run long. Just starts at 9, will probably be over between 3:30 and 4.
Oh, thank you, Roger. Roger, that's a good point. And Linda, with the tribal event and anything else going on like that, I should have mentioned it earlier. Please go ahead and put details in the chat box so that we've got that information there as well. And then,
Roger, is that called Elk Ridge Golf Course?
Yes, it is. Thank you. Yeah.
thank you, Phil. Thank you, Roger. Any other events, information, Roger, from you?
Only that I attended yesterday a day-long presentation by the Columbia River. Again, it's a brand new organization formed by the merger of the Visitors Association and a conservation group. Very interesting. Did a tour, went to the Mitchell Point tunnels, had lunch at a fabulous place, Wind Mountain Ranch, which is a brand new venue, and just did a lot of talk and networking on that. So, and by the way, it culminated with a ride on the steering wheel of Columbia Gorge, which had the pleasure of reminding people my father built. So there you go.
Indeed. Nichols Boat Works. Tourism Alliance, Columbia Gorge Tourism Alliance, I think is the name of that group.
They merged with another group, and it's I forgot. It's one of those names
yeah, Stewardship.
Stewardship.
Alliance.
Yeah,
That's
there you
it.
go.
Yeah,
Stewardship
yeah.
Alliance.
There we go. Brian Tuck.
Brian Tuck retired. OSU, yay, retired. And I also retired EMT or volunteer and firefighter for EMCFNR. So this will be an interesting conversation to hear what's going on.
All right. Let's check back in with Salvador with the Housing Authority. Salvador, are you with us this morning? And if not, we will. Here we go. Salvador?
Sorry about that. I was getting everything going up and going, and
I
that's couldn't
okay.
for the life of me get it to work. But
you are not the only one, believe me. That's okay.
Yeah, Salvador, I work for Columbia Cascade Housing here at the Mid-Columbia Housing Authority in the Dalles. Currently, right now, still currently working on getting everything ready for Mariposa Village. It sounds like there will be people being housed there shortly here in the next couple of months. Everything is moving along with the opening of that location fully in the month of January. Could be delayed a little bit due to the weather, depending on how that goes. Community Land Trust is still moving forward. We're still looking at anywhere between 18 to 24 months to being able to build the first 3 to 4 homes is what we're thinking of. Potentially could be the first 7. Outside of that, the home repair program, we actually got awarded funding for grants to be given out in Washington. So we haven't signed any agreement with them in regards to the Washington home repair, but we will be getting Washington home repair funding in Washington. So we will be having them for Klickitat and Skamania counties. Anything outside of that is out of our jurisdiction, so we can attempt to guide you to whomever services those counties to be able to get that type of service. But I believe it's going to be the same concept as here in the Dalles, or as here in Oregon. $25,000 has to be for home repairs, not like remodels. We don't do remodels, so the Oregon one is starting to move along. We're finally getting into the final stages of getting it open and running. So if you guys know of anybody, and it is income based, and we are prioritizing disabled veterans, income below 50% AMI. What else? What other programs are we working on? I think that is it for now. I think everything else is still in the talking stages, so not a whole lot moving in those ones, but outside of that, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Salvador and Columbia Land Trust, what's the location on that?
The one that we're currently focusing on, because it's the only one we got funding for, is the Carson, Washington one.
Okay, okay.
And that one, each home, it will be half an acre. And it will be either a 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, I believe, and it's going to be the homeowner can choose if they want to put a garage or not, depending. That will obviously increase the price of the home, but we are trying to subsidize it as well too, to lower it. Right now, the purchasing price, I believe, is anywhere between 250 to 300, potentially 350, depending on all the perks that they want to put in the home. But since these are technically considered for low-income housing, we are trying to get more subsidy to lower the price for the people who are purchasing it. So we're aiming for close to the $200,000 mark.
The land trust being where the property owner is different from the owner of the home. It could be a public entity or something else.
They're just going to have HOA that is going to be created by the homeowners themselves. Anything outside of that, really, we're not really going to partake a whole lot. It's not like we're going to be managing like the properties or anything like that. No. The only thing that we would be, focusing on is making sure the community stays clean. Like can't be turning into a junkyard, maintaining your section of your home and stuff like that. But outside of that, we're not going to be like curfews or anything like that. That would be depending on the homeowners themselves.
Thank you, Salvador. Cool. All right, everyone. Oh, Phil?
Yeah, I'd like, Salvador, let's bring the whole community land trust structure to a meeting of this group, because it is a real different way of thinking about it that gets people into that back into that starter home model.
Yeah, I actually, if you guys want, I'm pretty sure I can pop it up really quickly.
Well, let's do. We've got a presentation today, so let's think for another day.
Oh, yes. Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Sounds
Phil,
good.
I like the idea. I had a conversation with the college a couple of months ago about this topic, and I would love to bring that forward. So, yeah. There are some vacant dates on the calendar. I'm going to circle back to some folks. Salvador, definitely you included, Phil, and let's see if we can plan something for this forum. I don't believe I have missed anyone. With that, let's turn it over to our guest this morning, Chris Grant with Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue. Chris, take it away.
Hey, good morning, Dan. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to have my morning coffee with all of you and talk about May, Wildfire Preparedness Month. Here in the Gorge, obviously, I'm new here. I'm a greenhorn, just over about a year and a half now in the Dalles. I'm from the wet side, is what we used to call the other side of the Cascades. But as we've seen over the past 10 years or so, Southern Oregon has, really become an area of concern for wildland fires that we had down in Phoenix and White City and Medford and Grants Pass, all the way up into the Willamette Valley, Detroit Lake. And we're starting to see some of that same ecosystem changes and the fuels drying out quicker in Western Washington. So looking at some of the concerns that we predominantly have here in Eastern Oregon, they're all throughout the state. And the Northwest is, as things is changing, our seasons, our fuel content, our management of forests, they all affect, the potential for wildfire. But the freedom we have to go buy a tract of property out in the woods and put a home there, or live in that wildland urban interface is kind of what we're going to be talking about at our event coming up on May 21st. And that's why I wanted to meet with everybody like I did a year ago. We had a wildfire safety symposium hosted here in the Dalles on June 5th last year. Had an opportunity to share with everybody and talk about what we were doing in that event. And 6 days later, we had the tragic wildfires in Rowena. And then shortly after that, across the river over in the Bourdain fire. And fire season this year, as we're coming out of a very mild winter, is a concern for everybody. So starting with that, beginning tomorrow morning, the 8th of May, burn ban in all of Wasco County is taking effect. Oregon Department of Forestry set the boundaries. So May 8th for us, it was May 1st for Jefferson and Deschutes County south of us. So our outdoor vegetation management and yard cleanup, any debris fires are now going to be not allowed in this region, and they probably won't come back until close to hunting season. So yeah, mid to probably late October. So our biggest concern, and it's difficult to, in my experience here in the Dalles and 40 years in the fire services, is try to influence human behavior. For the last few years, Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue has been very fortunate. We had a grant to allow the fire department to assist with some of the costs or the physical labor with mitigation of homes here in our region. And that mitigation would include conducting a home survey, and depending on the capabilities and limitations of the occupants or the owner of the property, we may have boots on the ground, firefighters coming out, moving, cleaning, removing some of the undergrowth, trimming up trees. However, March of this year, that grant expired. So Wasco County, Melissa Napoli, the wildfire coordinator for the county, she manages the grants from the Community Wildfire Defense, so CWDG. So there is a process that we're working on to try to get some more federal dollars here into the populated area of the county, predominantly from the west side of 197 out to the county line, out to Warm Springs. That would bring some money in to help with mitigation and collaboration to reduce wildfire risks. There is a current grant that is bringing federal dollars down into the Tye Valley, Wamak, Sportsman Park area. That's where our seasonal fire crew is working to assist with some of the fuels reduction down in the central area of Wasco County. The current outreach that we have here in the Mosier, Rowena, Chenoweth areas here south of the city of the Dalles is performing free home assessments, where we'll come out, meet with the property owner, walk with the property owner, and identify risks to your individual homes and buildings on your property. And it's a systematic approach to kind of taking a look in 3 different zones. An intermediate zone is, or excuse me, the immediate zone is the first 5 feet of your foundation. So from the side of your house, 5 feet out, all the way around, that is the #1 priority that any homeowner can take in reducing fuels or combustibles that an ember could ignite. So bark dust, potted plants, leaves, are deciduous and conifer trees that Mother Nature, she litters and the wind blows, and you could clean up in the morning and you're going to have to clean up in the afternoon. It's just how it is. But when we take a look at these dried out fuels or the tree litter that accumulates on our properties, those are our biggest risks of ignition potential and then spreading of a fire into somebody's property. But if we can reduce those fuels within that foundation or that 5 feet of the home, it provides for a greater opportunity for your home to survive a fire that comes through that area. That will be our focus at our May 21st event. And our poster is posted on our website, as well as there's posters throughout town, our social media, Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue, on Facebook, as well as our website. The Chamber's website also has our flyer for our event. And our event this year is titled Neighbors Helping Neighbors. Our goal is to convince property owners that live in clusters in the urban interface to create what we call a Firewise community. So Firewise USA is a national program, and it's actually international now, that brings homeowners together to create a local co-op, if you will, that helps protect and reduce risks in their neighborhoods. So we are working on a couple different homes right up off of State Road and up off of Dundas. We have 26 homes that access the highway up there in Mosier that are all large acre properties that are timbered, have many oak trees and some pine. And it brings the neighborhood together to clear out your egress points and your access along the roads. As many of you know, that the county has roads that are gravel and they're recognized by the county, but they're not maintained by the county. And those are all the property owners' responsibilities. But having this Firewise community brings together the residents and the occupants of those homes together to take a look at a bigger lens than just what's in your fence line. Getting out, trimming up the trees, cutting back the roadside fuels, helping the neighbor that doesn't have the ability to climb up on a ladder to clean their gutters, having work parties to just reduce the fuels that are ignitable around the homes. So that's the push for this event on the 21st. Northeast Oregon Firewise, which is out of the Walua, if I pronounce that correctly, counties in Lowstein Canyon, in the natural area there. They created a documentary called Neighbors Helping Neighbors, and it's how the community came together to identify and address wildfire concerns. And in 2022, a wildfire came through that entire community, one of the largest fires that county has ever seen. And it was a significant impact into the natural area, but it did not impact the communities due to their work in creating the Firewise neighborhoods and looking out and reducing those potential for combustibility. So taking their experience and sharing it with the people here in the gorge is going to give a better understanding of how we all have to come together to reduce those risks. The event, again, on May 21st, the doors open at 4:30. The event is 5 to 8 at the Granada Theater. A light dinner is provided for everybody. And what I'm excited about this year is that we're partnering with the Chamber of Commerce to have chamber members from the trades present. So if you attended last year, we had a panel of speakers after the movie. And then we had several of our industry partners, Forest Service, Building Department from the county, emergency management, some stewardship and different programs, Oregon State University Extension. So we had industry experts to be able to talk with those in attendance about ways to reduce risk or understand, forest health and the sciences around, what happens when we, put the fires out and don't allow that natural process of the forest to manage its own waste, if you will, right? So this year, we'll have the industry experts there briefing people about Firewise communities and the fire risk in our region, but the audience is going to have an opportunity to talk to people from the trades, landscapers, arborists, people that can come and do gutter guards or roofing, people that can talk about replacing siding on an aged house, replacing windows and doors, and these areas within that 5-foot footprint of your home, that immediate zone to reduce risk. We'll have people there that, handyman services or people that can help you reduce some of the accumulation of collectibles, is what my dad says. Oh, these are just collectibles. And I said, Dad, piece of plywood you have here next to the shop, boy, it's delaminated. It's got some dry rot to it. It looks like it's about 30 years old. And his response is, well, do you know how much plywood costs these days?
Chris, I'm going to remember that term the next time I have a conversation with my wife. All right, thank you.
I said, Dad, do you really need it? If you need a new piece of plywood, I'll go buy you one. But I don't think this. He goes, well, I'll just hang on to it for a while longer. I said, Dad, God love you, 80 years old. Yeah, you've got a collection of stuff. And, we see a lot of that. People collect stuff and they just don't know what to do with it, and it accumulates. Very fortunate here that the Dalles has cleanup days and, both in the spring and the fall, opportunities for people to, one, get rid of organic waste, but also, the cleanup day that just happened over the last weekend. But how do you get started? So we'll have people there to be able to help people understand that, having 30 old car tires on your property is probably not a good idea. And here's some avenues how to recycle or get rid of some of that debris. But it starts with a homeowner reaching out to the fire department and asking for a free assessment. So like I said, trying to influence, human behavior and make changes to reduce risk is a tough one to measure. When we take a look at what happened in Rowena last year, 56 homes, the state finally came out, and there's another report that says 58 residential properties were destroyed in that fire.
Chris, well, we're on that topic, and
Yes.
if you don't mind my throwing in a question.
No questions.
Have we established a cause for that fire?
If you watch the news clippings, there's eyewitness reports. However, a formal investigation has not been completed yet. They're still doing some analysis and reviews because obviously it's going to litigation. But if you watch the news reports and the videos that are out there, and I can tell you that this wasn't one fire. There were multiple fires. So it was a complex of fires that came together that day, all within that 7-mile stretch from basically the Discovery Center out to basically mile marker 78 on the highway. So the Mosier Bend all the way back to the Discovery Center, multiple fires between the freeway and the river. So that's what I can say.
Yeah.
So
we can take it from there. Okay.
Yeah. So, having grass fires, and grass fires happen here. We get the field fires, we get the small, leaf cleanup fires. But when we have a situation like this where we have multiple fires, and the initial report was way out near mile marker 78, so way at the end where you get that last bend before you turn into Mosier, and that's where all the resources were dispatched to. As our fire units were responding, we're seeing smoke pop up behind us along that river, the river all the way through the Rowena Riverside, all the way out around from the Discovery Center. So that really kind of threw a curveball at us. We have resources from the scenic area, the Oregon Department of Forestry, Fish and Wildlife, Mosier Fire and Duffer Fire and Lyle and across the river here in Dallasport and ourselves and Hood River. We can get a lot of resources out to a location, but when you have multiple locations, it reduces our effective firefighting force. So we were behind the 8 ball because there were basically, 6 or 7 fires that were burning simultaneously. And the 60-mile-an-hour sustained wind gusts and the terrain and all of that, made it very difficult for us to, one, get a grasp on the total size of the situation, but also to set priorities and how do we, engage this fire to reduce the risk. We're very thankful that no lives were lost. We're very thankful that the Sheriff's Department and the Dalles PD got resources out there immediately to start evacuating areas that we had a delayed response to just because of the size of the incident. So, yeah, very, very tragic, but a lot of lessons learned. Like I had mentioned, we had hosted our last year's wildfire safety seminar 6 days before the fire took place. During the months of April into June, as I had mentioned, the fire department does fire safety assessments. I went out and assessed 9 properties in the Rowena area that would be considered in the burn scar from that fire. Out of those 9 properties, only 1 home was destroyed. 7 of the 9 property owners took immediate action based on our assessment, cleaning the gutters, reducing combustibles up against the foundation, moving your patio furniture with the cushions and the wicker away from the side of the home. We're coming into summer. Do you need that cord of firewood on your deck? Can we get the firewood moved? Bring it back in the winter when we have higher fuel moistures. But in the summer, if you're not going to burn firewood, that risk can be reduced.
That is a remarkable. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. What an impact.
Yeah. And, out of just those basic concepts, cleaning your gutters and the peaks and valleys of your roof, bark dust away from the home. Those were the common things that we had talked about with the homeowners. People that had attached decks, that has a space below because you're coming right off a foundation. It's not a big elevated deck. When was the last time you looked under the deck and cleaned? So, when Mother Nature blows the leaves and the needles, do they accumulate under there? Does the tumbleweeds get blown under the deck? Do you have a lot of combustible fuels? And if material is blowing under your deck, rest assured, embers will blow under your deck also. So when we walk around and we talk about put screening up to reduce debris getting under your deck, making a barrier by using a piece of tin between the deck and the house, so you don't have an ember sitting right up next to the your T111 or your siding. Just reducing those risks. And out of the 9 homes that were surveyed, there was 1 home that I thought for sure was the best home. It had a Class A roof. It had a metal roof. It had a very lush green yard with an irrigation system. However, the deck I talked about, it had a large flat deck off of the back. It was built on a slight slope. Firewood stored in a breezeway between the garage and the house. And the shrubs, there were some cedar trees and some juniper near the house, which are plants that we ask that those are the priority to remove them. They may look healthy and green on the outside, but all of the dead dander and that accumulates below every year as it drops off needles and leaves, and you don't really see that. But because it's like a big catcher's mitt, those embers land right in it, and it will start the fire underneath and then spread. And more than likely, that accumulation of combustibles around the home built on a slope, and the embers finding an opportunity to ignite, every building on this property, 2 outbuildings and the home, were lost. Within 30 feet of the home was an RV and a boat that had slight heat damage. So, lost the real property, the physical home, but the recreational vehicles that were in a driveway were unscathed. And part of that is the terrain features and the way the gusty winds come through, and in some cases up against that rock wall or the cliff on the backside of Rowena, it creates eddies. And you look at an eddy in the water with the turbulence and the little whirlpools. The wind does the same thing when it comes up against that cliff or that face. So
we have a question for Commissioner Brady has a question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And that's interesting about the multiple sources on the Rowena fire. I want to have 2 ideas. So I'm going to ask you to focus on the second one. I took a tour recently out east of Pine Grove out west of Juniper Flat. And I noticed that one of the complications dealing with is different jurisdictions. So there's the landowners on Juniper Flat, and then go further west and it becomes the White River Wildlife Refuge, which I believe is ODFW, and then go further west and then you're into national forest. So those different jurisdictions have different capacities to manage the land. Of those three, the White River Wildlife Refuge look very distressed. It looks like a high fire danger in there. Now, I'm going to shift from there, and you might touch on that if you want, but I'm really coming back to your jurisdiction here in the Dalles. So I live within sight of Mill Creek, and so I consider myself in an urban interface as well. I remember what happened in the Bear Creek fire down in Ashland. The fire burned right up the creek bed, and I can easily see that happening here. We have some other similar terrains. Scott McKay, you live on top of a hill with brush underneath your hillside, and others of us live along Dry Hollow, which is another vegetated area right in the middle of town, where we need to have the same kind of precautions that you're talking about further out in the out of town.
Right. I absolutely agree with you, sir. When we take a look at the big picture in forest management, all the forests have different priorities, right? Watershed management, dealing with recreation, or our forest creatures and the habitats. But it all comes back to lack of funding and lack of people and lack of a standard mission that everybody's on the same page. And that's just my opinion. Distressed forests are, we see them everywhere, even in our own community, right? Distressed patches that are either on properties that are owned by a trust, a family trust, large acreage properties, or we have homeowners that live out, in the forested properties, and they buy a property and put a home in it. The county has building codes, and I know they're updating the Chapter 10, which is the fire code for Wasco County. Chapter 11 is also the fire code for the scenic area, and we're looking for some positive changes in there. I know the state of Oregon has recently adopted a wildfire or a WUI building code, but they're all recommendations unless at the local level, at the political level, they adopt them and say this is the standard for construction. So when we bring a home or we bring people into the forested areas, once their home is built and the lifestyle takes place, then that environment changes because the inspections are done and it's all back on the homeowner thinking that they're going to take the precautions to maintain their properties. The natural areas, the creek that run out Mill Creek and the other terrain features and living on the hillside or having a home on top on the slope, those all create significant concerns for us because of just the way the wind blows and seeing that fire travel through those creek beds. And that's where a lot of receptive and dried fuels are, a lot of wood and overgrowth because they're not populated or managed because they're someone else's responsibility versus you as a homeowner that may live next to it. And then even if you were to go down and do some work in there and reduce some of the fuels, you might have somebody come after you and say, no, you're trespassing or you can't be in there. And that makes it really tough because everybody has different interests. It's got to be a natural buffer. It's kind of like the scenic area. You can't have a certain color roof because somebody on a freeway may see it. I think we all have different priorities, but we may be in the same book, but a lot of us aren't reading in this, at least in the same chapter yet. on the hillsides are really tough, and you had mentioned that Scott lives on the top of a hill, and that vegetation on the hillside, and how can we, I guess, as a industry manage fuels that are growing on that hillside. Tough to get equipment in. Goats are great. They'll chew everything down, but the roots will stay. And but if you do massive mastication or vegetation management on the hillside, then we run into the concerns of heavy winter and rain. And that was our big concern in Rowena, is with the soils being damaged and the root structures being damaged, that we would now look at some possible slides or other issues with the fuels gone and that vegetation not holding the soil together.
Let's go back over to Commissioner Brady. Follow-up question, sir.
Thank you. Yesterday at our county commission, we did adopt the burn ban countywide, as you mentioned earlier. So I didn't steal your thunder there, but you're right. And as I was looking at the ordinance, it brings with it penalties for lack of compliance, and then the burn ban includes strictly in City of the Dalles burn barrels. That's banned citywide all the time, I think, and countywide under the burn ban. But I bring it up because I've had working with a couple out in Wamik who had a neighbor who had a permit to do burn in her burning barrel, but wasn't following the prescriptions of the permit. And this couple were suffering from acrid smoke downwind that their neighbor upwind was sending them almost every day. The couple worked through every layer of government to try and get some enforcement happened, and were unable. And we at the meeting, they came and presented their list of steps they took, and we were like, wow, we can't think of anything else, including Seven Rivers dispute resolution. That didn't work either. So I'm asking folks, if you see something happen, complain. And I'm asking law enforcement. I'm definitely pushing on our sheriff's office to do some enforcement, serious enforcement, because people will judge by what they see somebody else doing and think it's okay.
Right. No, that's a great point, sir. Smoke complaints and the fire department will get calls quite often about people term it as an illegal burn or reckless burning, and the fire department will respond. And in a lot of these cases, they're neighborhood disputes that have been long-standing disputes. We know that it's against the ordinance and it's against state law to burn anything that's not natural vegetation. So a lot of people burn trash. I'll go and rake all the leaves in my yard in a plastic bag, and I'll just throw that all in the fire. Well, burning that plastic has the potential to bring a fine from DEQ. So when we have people that violate our burn permit here in Mid-Columbia Fire Rescue, that is really, if we're in the city limits, I can work with code enforcement through the Dalles Police Department. Our number one goal is to educate, but education only goes so far. Sometimes you have to educate people by fining them or issuing a summons. And the Dalles Police Department has that opportunity through code enforcement. Like you had mentioned, you cannot use a burn barrel in the city limits of the Dalles. But also when we take a look at the small city lots in the city limits, you can't have anything but a recreational fire because of the setback from the property line and the home. But people don't read the fine print of the permit, and we don't go on site to do an inspection to authorize a permit or not. So it's you hope that people are good neighbors and are following the printed rules, but very rarely do I see people following the printed rules. In the county, I know that code enforcement is working on a process to be able to issue a summons or a citation without the sheriff's department present. But these neighborhood disputes, bringing a a deputy out or a police officer out to deal with someone who's burning, trying to clean up their backyard, it then creates that resistance of the government, and you can't tell me what to do. And it just, I'm in favor of no outdoor burning, but that would not go over very well in this community. But the fire risks are so huge that I don't think there's enough teeth in enforcement to hold people accountable to following the burn regulations. But when people wantonly violate the printed rules that we have in place, we can pull the permit, but that doesn't stop you from burning at 2 o'clock in the morning, which a lot of people do, as they're disposing their trash. Our only avenue is to have documentation, statements, and produce those to the Department of Environmental Quality, so DEQ. And then DEQ has a stronger enforcement action at the state level to issue citations and summons to people. So that's really the only avenue that we have when everything locally has been exhausted. But, again, our goal with this event, Neighbors Helping Neighbors, is I think we've lost the connection in some of our neighborhoods to know who your neighbor is, or to have that community connection, to look out for each other. But again, some of these, are long-standing property line disputes, or your fence or your tree, all the needles fall into my yard, your branches are growing over my fence. Those are all, those issues that we hear and see at that, I mow my yard, why doesn't he? So.
I see a question from Corliss, and that's pardon the pun, hot topic. Insurance rates are rising. Is there anything that can be done?
Okay. That is a great question. A year and a half ago, the fire hazard map came out, and then that created a large uproar, and that at the legislative, at the state level, they then said, okay, we're not going to use the fire map. And everybody blamed the fire map that was created here in the state as the reason why insurance rates went up. And that's not necessarily the case. Every insurance company is a for-profit company that evaluates risk, and they'd rather take money in than pay out in claims. But with the significant fires that we suffered down in Southern Oregon and the Willamette Valley, Detroit Lake, and Deschutes County, those fires and the number of properties lost, the entire town of Phoenix was razed. White City had several homes, Medford, Grants Pass. The dollar loss in our region and in our state due to wildfires, fell within that algorithm from the insurance companies where they collectively raised their rates. It would be interesting to evaluate the southeastern seaboard, Florida and the Carolinas, and the hurricanes or the tornadoes through the plain states, have their insurance rates continually gone up, because those are destroying large swaths of homes, very similar to our wildfire risks from our natural disasters. But what can you do to reduce your rates? One, a lot of insurance companies have provisions that if you are a Firewise community and your community has a fire risk reduction plan in place, that homeowners may receive a discount.
Chris, let's stop on that one just for a second. Firewise community.
Yep.
Is that a formal designation? We've talked about it.
That is. So Firewise USA, taking control of your own risks. And this is the discussion point, and this is what our May 21st event is to go deep into the weeds of what Firewise is, how you and your neighbors can come together to develop a recognized community that has the priority of reducing risk. And that's the Neighbors Helping Neighbors. So how does this program work? It takes your community coming together. So we need a minimum of 8 physical properties, 8 homes, up to 2,500 homes. We could create Rowena Firewise with 2,500 homes, and it takes a small percentage of those homes to come together to organize, and it's not mandatory that every property owner joins. It's zero cost out of pocket to start a Firewise community.
So it's a percentage of the homes in the community?
A small percentage, yeah.
Okay.
So out of the 26 homes that we have up off of Dundas Drive, all we needed was 8 properties that said, yeah, we're gonna do the work. We're gonna manage it's not like an HOA, but it kind of is. You have to have a board of volunteers to represent the community. So you need to have a spokesperson, a recording secretary to be able to document the work that the community does on that wildfire risk. So you create a board or a community of volunteers to represent that neighborhood. They will work with partners such as Oregon Department of Forestry, which is our state Firewise coordinator, the local fire jurisdiction, as well as the Oregon State Fire Marshal. And we walk through with the community, we identify one, the overall risks to the community. That's our ingress and egress, the common areas that are between properties, the ditch lines, the roads. Then we help them put together a plan that now would include Chris from Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue coming out to individual homes and doing a individual property assessment that goes along with that community risk assessment. And then we sit with that community and we set priorities. This is the first thing you should address. This is the second for the community, and then the individual homeowners that want to participate. Once that is done, all that's required is an hour or 2 a year volunteering to clean up your neighborhood. It could be removing down limbs. It could be mowing grasses, cutting with the weed trimmer along the egress and ingress points to the community. And then you report that work back to the National Fire Protection Association, and that's all it takes. So a group of people to come together in a community, an organization to document the homes that are engaged, the number of volunteer hours cleaning up the neighborhood, and then making sure that documentation is turned in. And that is basically it. Mowing your lawn and you taking care of your own shrubs, that could be your 1 hour a year of fire risk reduction in your community.
So I'm looking at the clock, and this is amazing. I mean, we've almost gone through the hour here. Phil, you have a question. Any other questions as well? And just a big one. Could the city of the Dalles become a recognized formal Firewise community, or is that taking on too much? Is that too big a lift?
It's why we're starting the discussion, right? Of having this to educate, so people are in the know. But if we take a look at neighborhoods in our priority, so we want to weigh the risks. So Rowena has a greater risk, as we saw that they experienced, than the people that live near Fort Dalles, up behind the high school, for example. However, a little bit further behind the high school, you're getting into more dense brush, wider open properties with limited fuel breaks, no fire hydrants. The risk increases as you get into the greater fuels. Is there great risk up by Fort Dalles? Absolutely. In those treed areas and the understory and the brush, those all need to be managed. But the influence of how to get the neighbors from East 10th up to East 16th in this square block together and say, yeah, we can go out there and we'll become a Firewise community. With the city of the Dalles, allow them to go up and do vegetation work in the watershed and the on the street sides and things like that. So that's where all the players need to come to the table to sit and say, what can a volunteer group do on public property if the public property is the risk?
I'm going to turn it over to Phil and then Roger, and we've only got a few minutes left on this.
So super quickly, a good example of this was in Antelope, city of Antelope. It wasn't the city itself, but some residents made a Firewise community structure, and under inspection realized clean out some of the old dead trees, but I believe they used some funding to buy a large mower that they've been sharing one neighbor to the other to help them clean out the yards. That's been really useful.
Right. Great point. Firewise community is, if you're a recognized community, you are available for grants to help reduce the risk in that community, purchasing mowers, equipment, bringing the goat herder in to do hillside work. But yeah, being a Firewise community has the potential for reducing insurance rates of the individual homeowner, as well as being available for grants from ODF and the state fire marshal for doing fuel reduction, bringing in an arborist, which is pretty expensive, to help take down some damaged trees. So great point, sir.
Turn it over to Roger and Chris. Be sure to include in the chat box events on the May 21st event. And I'm assuming that'll be posted on the website.
Yeah,
Roger, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. This has been one of the most information-rich, very valuable that I've seen. I've been recording, and I will be submitting these for stories for both radio and newspaper. I also wanted to plug, I just put online the 165 local history presentations at the original Wasco County Courthouse, now digitized and available. I've got a list up there you can right-click and download. Thank you, sir. It was amazing, very amazing.
And I know we're rushing, Chris. Right at the end of the hour here, we had Jake Anderson, EDO, Economic Development with the City of the Dalles, join us. Jacob, of course, the city has a big part to play in all of this discussion here. Do you have any updates from the city?
No updates when it comes to Firewise and fire issues. Just let everybody know we're going to have mobilization beginning next Monday for the Federal Street Plaza. So you're going to start seeing some activity and construction there. There will be some times when 2nd Street is down to 1 lane. There'll also be a little bit of time, I think in July, when between 2nd and 3rd Street on Federal, it's going to be closed for some time to do some sewer work in there. But we'll keep watching the Dalles Facebook account and the city's website, and we'll make sure everybody gets the press releases ahead of time.
We want to bring Mayor Mayers back on board. We had a conversation several weeks back, and he had offered to continue discussion around city events. So let's get him back on the show. Chris Grant, Fire Marshal, Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue, has been our guest this morning. Chris, any closing remarks?
Yes, May 21st, the Granada Theater, doors open at 4:30, 5 p.m. The presentation will begin. But this is about creating Firewise communities and reducing the risk here in our region. Dinner will be provided, a light meal. There'll be refreshments available, but the event lasts from 5 to 8, and we're going to connect our community with people that can help reduce the risk on your property. And those are members of the Chamber of Commerce, from the trades, from landscaping to roofing experts, to people that can help you haul away your junk. Having the communication and the goal, we've got tons of handouts that everybody's going to receive, that everything from vegetation management. What plants can I plant next to the house that are not fire prone, that are going to create issues? What's the best way to have a rich landscape that doesn't require watering? So a lot of publications from Oregon State University Extension. The Master Gardener will be there to talk with people individually. We're also going to have a representative from the State Insurance Commission talking about some of the pitfalls and some of the issues that people have with their individual property insurance, and what protections are in place for Oregonians when it comes to property insurance, especially in light of a lot of companies dropping their clients. So 21st is a free event. We're going to have all the firefighters downtown. It's a family event. We're going to have Smokey Bear, Sparky the Fire Dog, but an evening of communication and education and outreach. But anybody can reach out to me, Chris Grant, at Mid-Columbia Fire Rescue for a free home safety analysis, where I'll come out and I'll walk the property with you. We'll identify priorities to reduce your risk on your home. It doesn't matter if you live on West 7th and you've got 1 tree in your yard. I'd love to meet you and come talk. But if you've got 50 acres and you've got a big farmhouse in the middle, I'd love to come out there and talk about the priorities there equally, because it's neighbors helping neighbors. And that's what we're here for. So
thank you, Chris.
I'll be on all.
Fascinating presentation.
Thanks. I'll be on all the radio stations here talking about the event over the next couple of weeks. But anybody can call me here at the fire station or email me, cgrant@mcfr.org, with any questions or any follow-ups. If you want to come to the fire station, have a cup of coffee and talk about your neighborhood, I'm your public servant. So I work for all of you.
Thank you, Chris. Roger, thanks for the media work on that as well, helping Chris get the word out. Everyone, we'll close it down this time around. Thank you very much for joining Community Affairs. Eileen White with oh boy, I'm losing it. The garden group, the
Farmers Market.
somebody help me. Thank you. Guess next week. I remember the name, not the organization. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep May 21st on your calendar. That's going to be a critical event.
Yeah.
Everyone, thank you. Bye for now. See you next week.
Thank you for your time, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
You too.